Welcome to the LED sign project. Okay, so we're going to go through it in 3 different stages. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you the first stage in this video, and as always, if you want to jump to any point in the video, you can jump to the correct chapter, and you can always go back and rewatch them. So in part 1, we're going to talk about making the design, okay, drilling your holes, putting the sides onto your board, and making sure that the LEDs get soldered the right way and get hot glued into place. Okay, I'm going to walk you through the steps for your LED sign. Okay. Now, the first step is you have to make a design for it. Okay. Now, that could either be drawn on paper, or you could find something, an image online that you might want to use. Okay, you would submit that to the Google Classroom. Okay, if you do it on paper, you'd have to submit it to me in physical form. Now, I want you to notice something. So I've labeled where each of my LEDs is going to go. Okay, and I've also labeled what color they're going to be. So for the colors, we have red, green, blue, and yellow. Okay, and in this design, I'm using both red, that's why there's letter R's there, and green, that's why letter G's. Okay. So the max you can have is 20 LEDs. All right. And I also have where I'm going to cut out and trace this so I can actually have the design on the board, not just the LEDs. Okay. So the reason I have you turn it in is because I'm going to make a copy. That way we'll always have your original in case something goes wrong. So you made a copy. All right. Now the next step, once you get your copy back, okay, is I'm going to give you a board. Okay. So we have a board right here, and we're going to tape this down. Okay. Now you notice that the paper is a little bit smaller than the board, okay, and that's on purpose. Okay, so we're just going to tape down the 4 corners. Fold those over. Okay. Now once we have it taped down, we have to go over to the drill press and we have to drill the holes. Okay, so we're finished drilling. Okay, so you can see I drilled all the way through. Okay. And if the back looks a little bit messy, don't worry about it. When it's complete, you won't even see the back. Okay. So we have to take this off. So if you rip it a little bit, it's not the end of the world, because again, we have that copy. Okay, and I'm gonna clean that up a little bit. Okay, now you can probably see where the high is, the H and the I, but I want to make sure that it is very clear what it's supposed to be. Okay, so I'm going to take the copy that I just drilled through, okay, and I'm going to cut out each of these sections, and then I'm going to trace. Okay, well, I've cut out all of my pieces that I need. Okay, and now I'm going to trace, and actually tracing it is easier since we have the holes, because we can just line up exactly where the holes should go and be sure it's the right way up. Okay. Once we have our holes aligned, okay, we can just, and we can always go back over this with a ruler if we want to make sure our lines are nice and straight and crisp. Okay, so I have my design. Okay. You can see it says high, okay, but it's not that noticeable. So I'm going to use some paint. Okay. And since I'm using red and green LEDs, I'm going to use red and green paint. Okay, so these are paint markers. So I'm going to use red. And if I want to clean up any of the lines, I can use a marker and a straight edge. So from here. And if you get a little bit of paint over here, you can just take that off with some sandpaper later on. Okay, so our design is basically done. Now we have to put on our sides and LEDs. Okay, so we have our sides on now. And now it's time to start putting in our LEDs. So flip it over. So we're gonna put them in back here. So I'm using red and green LEDs, okay? Now, remember when you wire it up, the black side always goes on the short end, okay? So for the red, black would go right here. And on the long end, okay, whatever color LED it is. So this is a green LED, a green wire will go here. Okay? This is a red LED, so a red wire would go right there. Okay? And the red wire and the black wire are each 26 gauge. The green wire is 30 gauge. So remember to use the correct size on your wire strippers. And once you have them wired up, you solder them and then you hot glue them in place. Okay, so now I've soldered all of my LEDs with wires and I've hot glued them in place. Okay, so this is the end of part 1, and in part 2 I'll show you how to connect all of the wires together and how to put your switch, cord, and circuit board in.